Hello, I have the lovely Guy Gardner with me again, coming back for another round. So before we start, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. Well, it's nice to be back and say hello again. About a year, isn't it? Something like that. So I'm Guy Gardner, writer, sometime musician. Well, no, musician quite a lot actually at the moment. Teach a little bit of piano, and I try and fit writing all sort of around that, which is really cool. I really like doing it. It's quite a nice, calming thing. um, I've written one book, which I guess we'll talk about in a minute. I've got a sort of another one coming out a bit later. Um, and yeah, just trying to get on and be a bit artistic, really.
Yeah, so we spoke last March, and you were suffering with COVID
Yeah,
and you had loads of other stuff going on. So hopefully, I apologise in advance if I ask you questions again, but I can't remember. It was a while
that's all
ago,
right.
and you probably won't either. So
And I probably won't answer the ones you ask. So,
no, well, you will because I'll just keep asking you until you give in.
okay, fine. All right.
And then obviously we kind of accidentally became best friends, so that was nice. And you came to my event in Brighton, which was awesome, and then didn't answer the questions I asked you, so that was fun.
No, but I did
Uh,
really enjoy it, and I liked talking about random stuff to annoy you. So I
you
had a great
realise
time.
that you realise that you're going to pay for that now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I realised my massive error far too late.
Good, that's fine. As long as you know, that's fine.
Yeah.
But obviously, in that year, apart from becoming friends with me, quite a lot of cool stuff has happened to you and your fortunes have changed. So, do you want to start off by telling everyone about what's happened to you in the last year?
Yeah, okay. Well, so I think when we spoke, I had one book out, The Mirror Game, which I'm going to talk about. I may even reveal more of the plot in a minute. Um, and I was sort of in the process of writing. I was editing one book. I've been quite busy. I sort of tried to kind of do a really condensed, like big write. So I tried to get as much as possible. So I sort of essentially had two more novels which were pretty near completion, I think, when we spoke. And I had COVID, and I was trying to sort of edit one in my sort of delirium and coughing. Um, so the Mirror Game was out for a while, um, and it was cool. It got some really good reviews, and it was difficult to know what to do sort of next. Um, it didn't look like the publishers were going to sort of do a lot, and it's sort of say it came to a standstill. But um, I had these novels. I didn't have anything to do with them, and then I started sending out one of them, and got quite a lot of rejections. And it's sort of got to the point where um, I began to think, well, this is sort of it. I've done one book. It's cool. Um, that's it. Sort of time to move on. Okay, I was on the point of giving up. All right. um, and I think you suggested quite possibly, like almost like one last publisher, like last ditch attempt. Um, and I sent my novel to them, and they really liked it, and that sort of changed things. And they, after having had all these rejections, and it is really tough, and it's like everyone says it. You always read from like top writers all the way down. Writing's about rejection, and but when you're sort of writing, you go, yeah, it's about, I know that, I'm prepared for that. But actually, you're not. It's really tough, and it's the very nature of how many, it's not the fault of agents and publishers, no matter how many, they get so many manuscripts, they can't, give detailed feedback. So you tend to get, it's no from us, best of luck, but no, and you get that over and over and over. And then, yeah, the lovely Caroline at City Stone went, I really like it. And I couldn't quite believe it, and then we had a meeting, and yeah, she really did like it. And um, it's in the system at the moment. She's sort of really got some good stuff going on. She's got some great writers that sort of signed up, and So that's all happening, and she's also re what's the doing the second edition? I don't know what the proper term is of the Mirror Game edition two. So they've taken that on as well, which is really nice. So that's going to sort of keep going, which I'm really pleased about because I've got. I think the first book, yeah, you probably become a better writer, but I think you have a sort of soft spot for it. You know, it's not the first thing, and so I'm really glad about that. And it might be that something else happens with that as well, um, as it's a detective story. See how I'm gradually, like putting little threads of what it's about. It's good. I'm a pro now. I'm a pro. So much better. But because it is a detective story and the time it's set in 1925. It's I'd quite like to expand on it. I'd quite like to do another one. I think it'd be really cool. I really love the characters. So yeah, so it's sort of all systems go really. There's sort of things in the pipeline, and it's great. I'm really happy. And I'd say to anyone in the position, you do have to, as you said, you have to keep sending things out, and don't. It sort of sounds a bit of a cliche, but don't give up. You just have to keep because there is definitely someone out there. If you've worked on your book and you polished it and had other people read it, sort of people that are going to be a bit harsh, maybe not just family and friends. And there's so many opportunities to do that now, beta readers and people are quite happy to do that sort of stuff. You polish it up and you just keep going, and then it'll happen. And even if it doesn't happen with that book, then you have to write another one. Do that. So it's cool. Yeah, it's really good fun. I'm really enjoying it.
And from a personal point of view, as your friend, it's been lovely watching you grow. From last year, you came to Brighton and done my panel, and then you're attending other events. You're getting involved in the community, and it's really really nice to see. And it's like from the like not mess you were necessarily to where you've come now, and your confidence has grown as well, and it's just awesome. Like it's
Thank you.
really really cool to see you finally be an author.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, no, that's really nice, and it's definitely that's been another really big thing. Is I think when we first met, well, you were on the blog tour, weren't you? So I hadn't really had any experience with being in a community of writers and people in the same position. It makes such a difference because obviously by another cliche, writing is a lonely thing, but it is. You're on your own making up a world, so you can't really be with other people. And But it's really nice to be able to then share with other people that are doing the same thing. You suddenly find, oh yeah, I've had that, I felt like that, and you egg each other on. As you've seen on Facebook with the horrendous pun off that we've had the last couple of days. But that aside, and there's so many people that have been caught up in it that you thought were really nice. And, no, they're doing the puns as well.
Yeah, Deb Day, I'm disappointed in you. Just so she knows.
Yeah,
You think you know someone.
no,
You
no.
and Trevor, you're a law unto yourselves, but Deb,
Well,
that's it.
what can I say? But no, it is really that aside. It's been great, and it is really nice. You kind of feel like you're on the same boat. And it's I never realised I sort of thought it would. I never realised how nice the writing community is with bloggers and people that are into books and writers. It's a really lovely thing to be involved in. Actually, that's been one of the biggest things. Really nice.
Yeah, I believe I might have told you this. I might have nagged you about joining certain groups that you insisted you were part of and you weren't.
Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah, you did
Told
mention.
you that you were on a panel at Brighton and gave you no choice. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you got talking to other authors. Yeah, just giving you little gentle nudges.
yeah. Very, very subtle hints. No, not nothing. I mean, almost indiscernible, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think me and Subtle would ever be described together, so that's fine.
No, no.
If I have to slap you around the face with a fish and tell you to do as you damn well told, I will. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. That was the feeling that came from it. that was exactly it. Bang! Ah, okay.
So, and the Mirror Game, which was your first book, would you like to tell everyone more about it than the year it was set in?
Very good. You couldn't resist that, could you?
No,
Um,
you had
well,
to. You had to expect that.
yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I would like to explain my book actually. So it's set in 1925. Um, Basically, the character in it, Harry Lark, it's set after there was a funny period where the First World War ended, and no one knew, what had happened, because up to that point, there hadn't been a world war, and everyone assumed humanity would progress and progress and progress. Science would sort of penetrate all these mysteries. Then we had a world war, and it was like, Jesus, it's things can get pretty dark, and so there's like quite a dark time after that, where people almost expected, sort of something really bad to happen. Of course, it did. Eventually, sort of Second World War. But yeah, it was a funny time in that, and so our main character, he comes back from the First World War. He's like a journalist. He's sort of very disillusioned. Um, he got injured, so he has a little bit of a problem with laudanum. He's not exactly a sort of knight in shining armor. He sort of struggles really, and he's kind of doing this journalism job, writing about high society, and he doesn't really sort of like it. And then his benefactor, who's a good friend, sees this man in a cafe who's supposed to have died. This man from the British Army who's supposed to have died in the trenches. And she's sitting in this cafe one day and she sees him, and there's no explanation at all. He looks like he's been living rough. And he disappears before she can talk to him. And this sort of sets the case going. It's like, how did this man who died in the trenches, he's reappeared? Um, and then he appears again a few months later, but he's quite well dressed. He starts making these sort of inroads into society, and it's like, well, what sort of happened to him? And this becomes essentially what the case is about. And Harry struggles the entire time with what's happened to this person, how they sort of reappeared, and his own sort of problems. And he also starts to fall in love with this person's fiance as well, just to complicate things further. Um, and the story's about that. So the mystery, I suppose, weirdly, it's rather than a murder, it's actually a reappearance of someone sort of thought dead, which and the plot uncovers, um, and yeah, he doesn't prove to be quite what he seems in the end. I'll say that.
I think we spoke last time about why you sort of chose to write in that time period. And then you mentioned the other novels, which are also historical. So do you want to talk about them?
What ones I've written or ones
Yeah,
um, yeah,
kind of why
okay.
we're here,
So,
Gigi.
sorry.
It's kind of why we're here to talk about you.
Okay, fine, yeah. So, well, again, oddly, I never started off thinking of. I don't know. I don't think of myself as a historical writer, but I like writing things set against that backdrop. I find it really interesting, and the lack of technology, and the fact that a lot of technology was in its infancy, is just really cool. So the next one I wrote, okay, let's see. So then the next one, provisionally titled India, is about a young lad. It starts off, he's sort of on the barges in Norfolk. This is set in 1890, I should say, just because I like to get the setting out of the way. So this lad, he's partly Indian, partly British. He's living with his mother on these barges, and it's a good life, but it's quite a sort of poor life. And unfortunately, this event sort of happens that it is sort of so bad that they have to kind of leave. They go to London to try and make their way in the world. Again, the poverty is a sort of real issue. They struggle to make ends meet, and eventually fall into this sort of criminal underworld, which seems very appealing, because the sort of the guy at the top, they live in a house which is really nice. So he learns, this lad Sebi, he learns all these skills, and begins to think, well, why not? you know, it's like all these rich people that they're sort of doing their thing. You know, why can't we have some of this? But in the midst of all this, his mother disappears, and there's no rhyme or reason why she should. She just does. So this sets him on a different path. He sort of tries to get away from that world, which he struggles with. He's sort of pursued by various people that don't want him to leave. And he has to solve this mystery of why she's disappeared. And this takes him across. He's quite young, bearing in mind, he's sort of about 12. Um, this takes him across, eventually across the continents to India, and to sort of uncover things about his own family and what happened to his mother. You know, it's his sort of driving force. And during all this, he it takes years, and eventually all these things before him. He eventually becomes a man through this. You know, so it's really a story about a boy becoming a man in a very difficult time. A lot of poverty. Obviously, in India, you had the British Raj, absolutely horrendous. The way they treated Indian people. He doesn't fit in because you know he's obviously sort of partly Indian. So he tries to sort of uncover a bit more about who he is during this process. And all the while, the driving thing is this mystery of what happened to his mother and where she is.
And this is the one that's being published by City Stone as well.
Yeah, yeah. This is coming out. We're not quite sure yet. Let's say they're redoing the Mirror Game, publishing that. So it'll be a bit later in the year, sort of September onwards, sometime like that.
Okay, so with the Mirror Game, have you ever thought about it being made into a film? And if you have, which character would you play?
Ah, well, I have thought about it made into a film, because, well, I mean, it'd be awesome, wouldn't it? You know, who doesn't want to see their book made into a film? Um, well, I'd like to play obviously the lead, the hero, but I'm probably a bit old, unfortunately. I suppose I'll shave the beard off, but so I think I'd probably like to play Bob, who's the kind of retired policeman. So I maybe have to age myself, which would be cool. But you know, he's kind of quite streetwise. He's good in a fight. You know, he knows what's going on. All the things I'm not, basically. But that's
I
what I think
couldn't
would make
possibly comment.
it. But that's what would make it a challenge. I think. You know, he's very smart. He's good at crosswords. He's got a really razor sharp mind. So yes, none of those things. You know, applied to me, but I think it would be great. I'd really like the challenge of doing that.
Did you hide any secret jokes, messages, or Easter eggs in your books?
Ah, I was trying to think. No, well, no, I didn't. I used referenced Bob is actually someone I knew when I was young. So my dad and him were basically best friends. So there's a little bit, but it would only be people that knew us. But he wears this flat cap, you know, which the actual real life Bob used to do. So there's sort of things like that, little references, which someone that his daughter, who sort of we grew up together, she sort of read it and she sort of said, "That's my dad," you know. But so that was cool. I was quite glad she got that. Other than that, no secrets or you know, secret codes or anything. No, sorry. Should I? Do I need to do that in my next book?
No, I just some authors do, some authors don't, and I just think it's cool when they do. But you
Yeah.
know, it's not something you have to do. Just I think some people do it subconsciously. Jane that we were talking about puts references to the music that she likes and stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, just and sometimes yeah, just subconsciously, you know, adding little details in, and you know,
Yeah.
sometimes conversations that you've had in real life and or little instances that have happened. But I just think it's fun.
Yeah, yeah. There's one I have with Harry Lark's surname. I, I, I sort of like the name; it seemed fitting. But there is a piece written around that time called "The Lark Ascending." So I got the name. It's a really beautiful piece of music, um, written, but there's larks sort of flying into the sky. It's like a violin piece. Um, And it's kind of, I did think of that actually when I thought of his name. So that is one thing, yeah, Lark Assembly. That's where I got the name. I
And how
forgot
did
about
you choose
it.
your character names?
It's well, some I come up with. Um, it's really hard. You think it'd be so what's hard about, but it's like having those names is so important. Um, so sometimes I come up with one like Harry Lark. I did come up with because I like the rhythm of it, Harry Lark. I came up with Frederica Carlisle. I sort of like again, it seemed like a nice sort of sophisticated name, so I did make that one up. And then other ones, I basically look at end credits of TV and take a surname, and I think that's quite. I thought I was quite clever doing that, but I've since found that a lot of people do it. But like a first name from somewhere, a surname from somewhere else, and it keeps it. If you don't do that, it's surprising you tend to have it's like we were talking about like rhythmic patterns. You tend to pick certain things, rhythms you like. So if you're not careful, the names can be very similar. So that's one way I do to sort of switch it up, you know. And then you've got names that just sort of a bit more realistic.
Do you think that your musical background makes you want to write rhythmically?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's I'm aware of it, and I'm aware of it in dialogue as well. I really sort of try and I like it's one of the things I really enjoy when two characters get into an argument or they're discussing something, I'm not a planner when I write, so I'm like enjoying it, when it's happening and just writing it down. But it gets very rhythmic. They say something, this is the response, and like leaving silences and pauses, because that's the thing. A conversation like it is that. I guess we're doing an interview, so I'm blabbering on a bit while you're listening. But like if the more we were chatting, there'd be like interruptions, a pause, and I think those things really make dialogue stand out. And if you read, it's a really good example of that. I guess any good writer is, but maybe Stephen King. But it's those little hesitations. Like, someone's going to say something and they don't. Um, I like all that, So and then that's definitely I hear that in a musical way. It's sort of rhythmic of the language. I think.
I hear a lot, um, especially when asked for advice. A lot of people say if you want to be a writer, you need to read a lot. But it
Yeah,
doesn't sound like you get much time to read. So, are you a big reader?
I am. I don't at the moment. No, it's true. But I mean, I've been writing for a long time on and off. Right, I started like 2006 maybe, and I will never disclose the book that I wrote because it was absolutely awful. I didn't know what I was doing. Well, still don't, but maybe slightly more. Um, but when I sort of took it a bit more seriously, I got that bit of I read that great Stephen King book on writing, and yeah, he says read a lot. It's all you need to do, and I thought, okay, well, he knows what he's doing. That's Stephen King, I better follow that. And so at that point, I think the kids weren't going to school then, so we didn't have to be up quite so early. So I read a ton. I really did. I read every morning. I read at night, and it is absolutely the number one thing you can do. I mean, there's so many great courses. All that is brilliant. Absolutely, But the one thing that you can't not do is read because you don't know what you're doing. And I've seen it in music, all the time. People go, "Oh, I don't listen to that," I just play my own thing, and you can't because language doesn't develop in isolation. That's the bottom line, I think. So yeah, I read and read and read and read, and it was the best thing. It really improved my writing. And you say, oh, that's how that person does it. And people worry about, oh, I might sound like so and so, but you don't. Unless you make an absolutely conscious attempt to copy someone's style, you will never sound like them because you won't think of the same things at the same time. You won't approach a scene the same way. So what you do get is that sort of like I don't know, like sort of ability to kind of use words better, and you see how they do it. You think, oh, that's pretty cool. So yeah, but I did read a lot, and now I just try and read a little chunks when I can.
And sitting where you are now with what you've got behind you, if you were to advise someone starting out, would that be your advice, or would you say something else?
No, I think just keep reading. You're just going to keep doing it and keep writing. That's the other thing. People say I'm not a writer because I'm not writing, um, but that's not true because you're thinking about the story. And in fact, I think the writing goes on before you even put your fingers on the keyboard. Because you're not just that's not when it's happening, is it? It's not just you putting your fingers on the keyboard and these words are coming out. It is coming from what's happened throughout the day. So it's like for me, I do a lot of driving, so I think about things then. So I think that is the actual writing process, and then the end bit, as you put your fingers on the keyboard, you try and get some of that down. So it's don't sort of think you're not a writer if you're not writing at a keyboard, because that's what people do, and then they beat themselves up and give up. And I know that because I've done that. I'm not writing, and it's all a waste of time. But you are. All you need to do is open yourself to the world that you're creating and start looking around, and then you can make notes, do all that sort of stuff, and then the end thing is you actually. At some point you've obviously got to get your fingers on the keyboard and get some of that down, but that's not the only bit, and I think that's the advice I would give. You're writing every time you're thinking about the character, every time you're looking at that world, and that can be any time, making a cup of tea, driving in the car, whatever, so you can write all the time, I think.
At what point did you change your view from "I've written a book" to "I'm an author"?
Well, I think getting published, I mean, yeah, I think when I got published, I thought, is that a thing of someone likes it enough to take it to another step, take it to another level? So I think I definitely thought that when those things started happening, it gets a bit more real, and I think, but definitely being signed to this publisher, because they're so nice, City Stone, Caroline's great, and they really make you feel at home, like it's a sort of family. And then you think, I sort of deserve this. I've got a place in this, and so I think before that I felt like a writer, definitely because of writing, do my book and everything. But yeah, then once other people, I think just getting other people involved as well. Yeah, that's the other thing. I think probably even before getting published, it's people reading a book as well. It's like when you've written it and no one else has set eyes on it, no one knows, do they? But I think once other people start looking at it and reading it, yeah, then you start feeling, yeah, this is a bit weird. Even sending off to agents, that's another thing, because you're still now, you've made a decision. You must believe the bottom line, you've got to believe that your work's worth it if you're sending it to agents, or you wouldn't bother. So I think that point, yeah, I'd say even before actually being published, that point when I started sending out, info to agents, and thought, yeah, this is sort of a bit real now. Other people are actually going to read this. And then whether or not you get rejected is almost like neither here nor there. You're doing it. You're in the system. You're trying to put your stuff out. And yeah, no, I felt pretty serious then.
Whether you get rejected is neither here nor there, really.
Oh, I mean, they're just, I was fine about it.
Yeah,
Just, water off a duck's back, I would say.
yeah,
But
didn't have little nervous breakdowns every time at all. It's fine.
yeah, those. But other than that, yeah, just keep going. I didn't never thought of giving up.
No, 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 not at all. No, I didn't have to literally force you to apply to different publishers
Oh, no.
and tell you that's what I was doing, because you were like, why'd you keep tagging me in all these publishers? What's you doing? You need to submit to them, you knob.
Yeah. That was the thing, wasn't it? That was yeah. I remember that now. Yeah,
We got there in the end.
we got there in the end, didn't we?
I think I asked you last time which author you would most like to spend a day with.
Oh yeah. There is so many. I think everyone must say Stephen King, um, but I do. I think he's really interesting. Every time I've seen him interviewed, I just think he's really funny and really interesting to talk to. So I know that's probably. Do loads of people say that, or is that just yeah? Um,
It would be
but
my answer as well.
yeah, it's just I just like his whole like he always wears jeans and a t-shirt. So he's interviewed at like Berkeley or something, and he's just wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and he just rocks up. It's like he's so good, that nothing else matters. Like I wore this for this interview. I'm like I didn't want to wear jeans and a t-shirt. I'm trying to be smart, but yeah, it's that point where
You
it's
got
just like
PJs on the bottom half.
yeah, yeah, massive fluffy slippers. Yeah. But no, I think he's great. He's really funny, and he'd always be. I quite like who's the guy that wrote the Game of Thrones? George R. R. Martin. I think he'd be pretty cool. And I've seen the two of them interviewed together. They're really funny. So probably hang out with the two of them. I'd imagine there'd probably be quite a lot of trouble, but
Yeah, it'd be great.
yeah.
um, are you attending any of the book festivals this summer that I have to tell you about because you've never heard of any of them?
Yeah, well, obviously I don't know anything. What am I doing? The Bristol one. Going to that one.
Crime Fest, yeah.
That's the one, yeah, Cronfest.
Now you've got your
Um,
ticket.
I think I seem to remember we have another Brighton one. Is that right? A bit later
Yeah,
in the
there's
it's not
another
the
one
same one.
before that as well.
Yes, there's Tales on Trent. I know them all. I've got them all. It's all in here. So I have to. Might take me a while to access the information, but
Yeah,
so
you
yeah,
go,
Tales on
Donna, what
Trent.
are we doing again? When are we going?
Yeah, if you just tell me that yeah, that would be great. If you could just be my PA.
I do. Are you
And
saying that like I don't already do that?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then that was obviously with Trevor and where we'll have to dress up in some kind of elaborate fancy dress now because we've been so daft. And
You've only got yourself to blame.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
and Trevor have only got yourself to blame.
yeah. I'm looking even as we speak. I'm shopping for you know brogues, leopard skin brogues to
I'll
wear.
buy you something for your birthday.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, this is Trevor Belshaw for anyone that's wondering. And if you want a laugh, if you like puns, then look on their Facebook pages, and it's Pun City.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know if laughter. Well, I mean, we found it funny. I don't know, if that translates. But
It's like two little boys having fun together.
it's cool. But on that note, no, that is what's really nice about this. Is I never met Trevor. We never met each other, but it's like we have a real laugh, and obviously we will meet, and then it's going to be carnage. Um, but I love that. I think that's a really special thing. I'm not sure where else you get that, but it's such a nice community. It's a lovely part of it.
Yeah, I know you're bloody dragging others into it as well.
Yeah. Well, I started Alan Meredith. I put up on mine. I recently branched into a zombie novel. I wrote it, but it really stank. And that started a whole pun off with Alan about vampires. I told him I staked out all the shops, that sort of thing.
I know. I know.
He found it a draining experience writing vampire novels. So I just want to give you a flavour. When people, go, we must find out what Guy and Trevor and now Alan and Deb and
Other Alan.
yeah, 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 yeah. Andy Hill, he's involved in it now. Those guys sound great. We must check them out. You've got a flavour of that now.
Yeah, thanks. So you've said obviously that about 100 times that the Mirror Game set in 1925.
Yeah.
And obviously your other book's historical. Would you consider writing a modern book?
No, I would definitely. So what I kind of like when I write is some weird mystery that doesn't quite fit. Like so the mirror game is a reappearance, not a disappearance. I found that really interesting. Um, the with India, again, it's a sort of disappearance, but it's about this. I can't know too much. But this lad becoming a man during this huge sort of journey. So I try and do, I just find anything I find really interesting and quirky. So I don't actually mind the time it's set, but I seem to veer, to some historical element somewhere, even if it's sort of like a flashback or I just really like it. And I don't know, because so when I was a kid, I read loads of fantasy stuff. I didn't really read that sort of stuff, but I just really find those times interesting. And like I think I said somewhere else, like anything before, there's a period where I feel fairly comfortable writing in the sort of Victorian period to now, I suppose. But anything before that, I feel really uncomfortable, like with sort of powdered wigs and cork moles and all that sort of stuff. I feel really out of my depth, even though I wear that stuff, most of the time. Um, but that sort of Victorian period I really like, just because it was on the cusp of so many things, and science. They thought science would penetrate everything. Um, and so I'm sort of drawn to that. I find it really interesting. Um, I'm trying to come up with one. I'm really interested in Victorian magic, so I'm trying to kind of craft some sort of story around that at the
Um, is there any genre or topic that you'd never write?
moment. No, really. I mean, I'm not. I don't know, because I like to sort of try anything. I don't know if there'll be anything off like. I suppose sci-fi. I'd feel sci-fi, fantasy maybe weird because that's stuff I read all the time when I was a kid. But oddly, I can't I can't see it in my mind. When I'm sort of switching that stuff on, I think, well, what am I going to write about? That stuff never figures, and I can't sort of see a way I would sort of do it. That would be realistic. I don't know. It just doesn't sort of. Not that I don't like it, but I don't feel able to do it.
Since you started writing, have you ever read a book and thought, I give up, I can't ever do that, I can't match this?
Oh yeah, well, probably all the time. I think. I mean, it's like everything. I mean, the Shadow of the Wind, that series. You read those and you just think that this is amazing. The idea of this library of forgotten books, it's such a good idea. The sort of cemetery of forgotten books and all these stories weaving into it, and you can read the books in any order and they make sense. I just think that's incredible, and so, but it doesn't make me sort of want to. Yeah, I don't think I can match it, but I kind of just try and do what I can do. That's the thing. There's obviously some people that are just geniuses, and you just got to go, wow, that's amazing, be blown away, get up, dust yourself off, and do what you can, and just sort of try and be. I think the important thing is just to keep going at it, and enjoy writing, and don't worry. There's always going to be people that are amazing. That's what's fun about it. It'd be pretty boring if you were the best one, wouldn't it? But yeah, definitely regularly. Yeah, every time I read, more or less. I think that's pretty good.
Someone's holding a gun to your head and telling you have to give up either writing or music. Which one would you choose?
Oh no, there's
It's
no other
me as
option.
well. It's me holding the gun, so I'd fire.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you would, wouldn't you? Totally. I don't know. I can't answer that. I think I'd probably, if I had to do that, I'd probably ask you to pull the trigger. I have to do both because they feed off each other. So if I didn't do one, the other one wouldn't work. So it'd just be, well, shoot me in the head. That made me make that decision. And I know you would. You go, okay, fine. Second thought.
Yeah, bloody not answering my questions again, for God's sake, man.
Yeah, well, I can't answer it, can I? You've given me a question I can't answer. So I've come up with a different solution, like Captain Kirk. I don't believe in no-win scenarios. Actually, you don't know that because you don't watch Star Trek, but I know
Because I'm not a geek. I'm
that.
too busy reading. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
have
yeah,
time for
exactly.
telly. This is why when you ask if I've watched a film, generally the answer is no.
No, I don't. I used to sort of really, yeah, I haven't been to the cinema or anything for years, but I think now I feel more interested by books, to be honest. I think most of the time you see a new film that comes out, and it's like, but books, way more interesting. Um,
Yeah, still really slow though. Just saying. What's the first record you ever bought?
First record, Concert. Well, no one's going to know this unless they're jazz fans, but Concert by the Sea by Errol Garner. So Errol Garner he was a brilliant pianist. He was totally self-taught. Um, I think. I mean, his career started in the 20s, but he had this particular style that was unique to him, and he used to never tell the bass player and the drummer what he was going to play. He would just start, and any footage of him is hilarious because he just starts to play, and they just have to sort of find what he's doing and catch up with him. But Concert by the Sea was absolutely amazing concert that he did in California, and it was one of the first things I heard as a kid that really turned me on to music. Um, and I was hooked after that, and it was great. And he used to grumble when he played, so it sounded really weird when I was young. It's just like, sort of playing the piano, but amazing, So that was my first record, Concert by the Sea.
If you were to switch places with a superhero for a day, who would you switch with?
Iron Man, because I quite like the gadgetry. I wouldn't be able to work any of it because obviously, I could barely unlock my phone, but I do like the idea of having all that tech. I'd probably fly into a building and demolish it.
What do you mean, probably?
Yeah, okay, yeah, I would, yeah.
If I were to ask your nearest and dearest what your most annoying habits are, what would they say?
I've got absolutely terrible memory, so I forget pretty much everything. So recycling doesn't get done. Food gets burnt when I'm sort of thinking about writing something or playing something on the piano. It's probably that, really.
Write it down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'll forget to write it down, and then I'll forget where I left the bit of paper. You see, so
Yeah, that would annoy me as well.
yeah, 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 yeah. Pretty organised, but yeah, no, I'll forget things. Yeah, terrible.
You must, I mean, you've got two kids and you
Have
teach
I?
in like
Yeah, yeah,
three different places and
yeah.
you write and you do your gigs. Like you must be fairly organized to keep up with and be in the right place at the right time and get the kids to the right place at the right time.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, no. I mean, it's well, yeah, it does work more or less. I think I know that, but that's habits, that's routine. So that goes to a different part of my brain. And the kids do mostly get to school. Yeah, no, no, we're pretty good with that. Um, Clad in the appropriate clothing, shoes that fit. Yeah, yeah. But that's probably my wife is maybe more to thank for that. Or they just be wearing the stuff they came out of the hospital in.
Oh, bless them, poor things. I feel sorry for them. Not joking, they're very cute.
one of my one of my friends his mum said you've got to bring him quickly, put him in appropriate clothes. He couldn't find anything, so he had like a cape off a toy Yoda. So he wrapped the baby in that. Right, it's
It
warm.
works, I guess.
It's got a hood.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I've seen people like use teddy clothes and stuff, which is quite sweet.
Yeah, yeah, whatever works.
Yeah. Well, I think I've asked you, and you've actually talked about your book. Unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you that you want to talk to us about.
No, I think you've done great. Thank you very much. Thank you for another interview. It was cool. It was a real pleasure.
You're very welcome. So, would you just like to remind everyone where they can find out more about you, where they can find your terrible puns, and where they can get your books from?
Yeah. So Terrible Puns can be found on Facebook. Pretty much now I've got the whole writing community involved, so that's easy. You can find out more about me from my website, www.guygardner.uk. And also, if you go on City Stone Publishing, then there's lots of details of books to come there as well.
And if they wanted to find out more about your music?
That's also on my website. So, yeah, any stuff I'm doing is coming up there. And that's the main source of all things Guy Gardner, basically.
Which I would highly recommend to everybody, as well as Guy's books. I've read a little bit of India and it's beautiful, and I fell in love with it completely. And I've heard Guy's music and it's beautiful, so I'd recommend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care.